Kiravel had been doing her job for 70 cycles now. That was a long time even for her species. She worked as a xenobiologist for the Galactic Coalition, which meant she studied alien life forms on different planets. Over the years, she had visited 43 worlds. She had seen things that would make most beings run in terror. Crystal creatures that thought as one giant mind, gas beings that floated through clouds, plants that could move and hunt, animals with 20 legs and no eyes. She thought she had seen everything. Then the humans arrived. The human ship landed on Zelthar 3 days ago. Kiravel remembered the exact moment she saw it descend through the toxic clouds. The ship was smaller than most Coalition vessels, built with simple lines and basic technology. It touched down on the purple sand with a soft thud, and 6 humans walked out. Zelthar was not a safe planet. The Coalition rated it as a level 9 death world. That was very high. Only level 10 was worse. Most species needed heavy armor and weapons just to step outside on a planet like this. The air carried spores that could melt flesh. The plants leaked poison. The animals were aggressive and hungry. Smart species stayed away from Zelthar unless they had no choice. But the humans walked out wearing light clothes and thin helmets. They carried basic gear. They looked around at the deadly landscape and smiled. Actually smiled. Kiravel watched from her observation pod and felt confused. Did they not understand the danger? Had no one told them where they were? The Coalition had sent Kiravel to watch the humans and write reports. Her species, the Velshara, were perfect for this job. They had 4 eyes that could see almost everything around them. They could record memories perfectly like a computer. They never forgot what they saw. Kiravel would watch these humans, learn about them, and decide if they were ready to join the galaxy's community of species. She studied the 6 humans from her floating pod. The pod hovered 50 meters above their camp, high enough to see everything but far enough to stay hidden. Her species learned long ago not to get too close. When you got close to subjects, they acted differently. Better to watch from far away and see how they really behaved. The human leader was a woman named Kate Sullivan. Kiravel learned this by listening to their communications. Kate was a botanist, which meant she studied plants. This seemed dangerous on Zelthar because most plants here could kill you. But Kate walked right up to them. She touched leaves that Kiravel knew were toxic. She took samples from flowers that released paralytic gas. She did this while humming a tune, completely relaxed. Then there was Ryan Hayes. He studied rocks and soil. Ryan spent most of his time hitting stones with a hammer and holding them up to the light. He seemed happy doing this. He would crack open a rock, look inside, and laugh. Kiravel did not understand what was funny about rocks. The security team worried Kiravel the most. Jake Morrison was the quieter one. He carried more weapons than Kiravel had ever seen one being carry. Rifles on his back, pistols on his hips, knives strapped to his legs and arms, grenades on his vest. He moved like a predator, always watching, always alert. But his face stayed calm. He never looked worried. Lisa Chen was the other security officer. She never stopped moving. Her eyes scanned the tree line constantly. Her hand stayed near her weapon. She walked the camp perimeter every hour, checking for threats. Kiravel's sensors showed that Lisa's heart rate never rose above resting levels. The woman was always ready, but never scared. The last 2 humans were scientists. Ben Foster studied the atmosphere. He set up equipment that measured air pressure, temperature, wind speed, and chemical composition. He seemed excited about the toxic spores, which made no sense to Kiravel. Why be excited about something that could kill you? Sophie Grant was a zoologist. She studied animals. Sophie wanted to get close to everything that moved. On day 2, she tried to approach a Vexmore, a 6-legged creature with poisonous spines. Jake had to physically pull her back. Sophie pouted for an hour but was soon excited again, watching the creature through her camera. Kiravel watched all of this and took notes. The humans acted strange. They treated this death world like a vacation spot. They sang songs while they worked. They joked with each other. Kate made everyone stop for lunch and they sat together eating food and laughing. They seemed to have no fear at all. On the 2nd day, a Vexmore pack tried to raid their camp at night. These creatures were dangerous. They hunted in groups of 10 to 20. Their spines could punch through most armor. They were smart enough to use tactics. The humans barely reacted. Jake and Lisa moved to defensive positions. They fired their weapons with calm precision. The Vexmore retreated after losing 3 pack members. The whole fight lasted maybe 2 minutes. Then the humans went back to sleep. Sophie wanted to examine the dead Vexmore bodies in the morning. Kate told her to wait until after breakfast. Kiraval added this to her report. Humans showed remarkable calm under pressure. They treated deadly predators like minor annoyances. This was unusual. Most species panicked when attacked. These humans just dealt with the threat and moved on. The camp itself was simple. The humans had set up a few tents around their ship. They built a fire pit which seemed primitive, but they insisted on cooking their food over flames. They played music from small devices. They took turns keeping watch at night, but the person on watch usually read books or worked on reports. No one seemed tense. During the day, they spread out across the landing zone. Kate collected plant samples. Ryan gathered rocks. Ben set up his equipment in different locations. Sophie tracked animal movements. Jake and Lisa provided security, but they also helped with the science work. Everyone did multiple jobs. What struck Kiraval most was how they talked to each other. They were friendly. They made jokes. When Ben's equipment malfunctioned, Ryan helped him fix it while Kate offered suggestions. When Sophie got too close to a toxic pool, Lisa pulled her back with a smile and a gentle warning. These humans genuinely liked each other. They worked as a team not because they had to, but because they wanted to. On the third morning, Kiraval ran her daily sensor sweep. This was routine. She checked for weather changes, seismic activity, and large animal movements. The first 2 scans came back normal. The third scan made her freeze. There was something big moving through the crystal forest. Very big. The heat signature was massive, easily 4 times larger than a human. It was moving toward the human camp with steady purpose. Kiraval immediately checked her database for identification. When the results came back, all 4 of her eyes widened in horror. She knew what was coming. She had to warn them. They had to leave now. Right now, the creature approaching was a Raxthor, an apex predator, the most dangerous thing on this already dangerous planet, and it was headed straight for the human camp. Kiraval stared at her screen and felt a cold fear spread through her body. The identification was clear. The creature moving toward the human camp was a Raxthor. She had heard of these beasts but never seen one. Most researchers who encountered Raxthor did not survive to write reports about it. Her manipulator appendages moved quickly across the interface. She pulled up every piece of information the Coalition had on these creatures. Each fact she read made her more worried. Adult Raxthor averaged 4 meters tall. That was taller than 2 humans standing on each other's shoulders. They measured 7 meters long from head to tail. Their bodies were covered in overlapping plates made of silicate, a mineral harder than most metals. These plates could deflect energy weapons. Regular bullets bounced off them. Even military-grade explosives had trouble penetrating Raxthor armor. The creatures had 6 limbs total. 4 legs carried their massive weight and let them run at incredible speeds. The other 2 limbs were specialized for killing. These arms stayed folded against their chest until they attacked. Then they extended outward, revealing blade-like appendages on the ends. The database said these blades could cut through reinforced steel like it was soft butter. Raxthor had sensory organs that could detect prey from 3 kilometers away. They could smell blood from even farther. They could hear heartbeats from 100 meters. They could see in multiple light spectrums, including infrared. Nothing could hide from a Raxthor once it decided to hunt. But the worst part was their behavior. Raxthor were territorial and aggressive. They did not run from threats. They did not back down. When a Raxthor encountered another creature in its territory, one of them died. That was the only way these encounters ended. Either the Raxthor killed its target, or the target killed the Raxthor. There was no middle ground. No scaring them away. No negotiating. The database listed 67 recorded encounters between Coalition personnel and Raxthor. 41 encounters ended with the death of Coalition personnel. 26 encounters ended with dead Raxthor, but only after heavy casualties. Average survival rate for individuals facing a Raxthor was 12%. Average survival rate for groups was better, around 40%, but groups usually lost at least half their members. Kiraval felt panic rising. She had to warn the humans. She activated her emergency beacon first. This sent an automatic distress signal to the nearest Coalition military vessel. The computer calculated response time: 4 hours. The military ship would arrive in 4 hours. The Raxthor would reach the human camp in less than 1 hour. She opened a communication channel to the human camp. Her voice came out higher than she intended, stressed by fear. Human Team Sullivan, this is Observer Kiravol. You have a Class A predator approaching your position. Bearing 270. I strongly advise immediate evacuation to your ship. There was a pause. Kiravol could see the humans through her cameras. They were gathered near their morning fire, eating breakfast. They looked up when her message came through. Kate set down her cup and tapped her communication device. Class A predator? Can you be more specific? Kate's voice sounded curious, not afraid. Just curious. It is designated a Raxthor, native apex predator, highly dangerous. Please evacuate immediately. Kiravol tried to keep her voice calm, but knew she was failing. She watched the humans gather in a small circle. They talked among themselves. She could not hear what they said. Jake pulled out a tablet and appeared to be looking something up. Sophie leaned over his shoulder to see. Ryan shrugged and said something that made Lisa smile. They talked for maybe 30 seconds. Then Kate activated her communicator again. Thanks for the heads up, Kiravol. We'll handle it. Handle it. Kiravol replayed those words in her mind. Handle it like this was a minor problem, like a Raxthor was something you just handled. You do not understand, Kiravol said quickly. Her voice was urgent now, almost pleading. This creature cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be frightened away. It will attack. It will try to kill all of you. You must flee. Get to your ship and leave this planet. We appreciate your concern. Kate's voice was warm and friendly. Kiravol's translator matrix detected something in the tone. Amusement. The human was amused. But we've dealt with dangerous wildlife before. We'll be fine. The communication link closed from the human end. Kiravol sat in her observation pod and simply stared. They were not leaving. The humans were not getting on their ship. They were not running. They were not even looking worried. She watched as they finished their breakfast. Kate said something and pointed to different areas around the camp. The humans nodded and split up. Jake and Lisa checked their weapons. They loaded fresh ammunition into their rifles. They tested their communication devices. But their movements were calm and practiced. They looked like they were preparing for a routine patrol, not a fight with an apex predator. Ryan and Ben started packing up loose equipment. They secured anything that might get damaged in a fight. They moved the scientific samples into protective containers. They worked efficiently but without any sense of panic. Kate and Sophie walked the camp perimeter together. They looked at the terrain. They pointed to different rocks and trees. They seemed to be discussing strategy. Sophie made notes on her tablet. Then they all went back to work. Kate returned to her plant samples. Ryan went back to hitting rocks with his hammer. Ben checked his atmospheric equipment. Sophie watched a small lizard-like creature through her camera. Jake and Lisa took up guard positions, but they looked relaxed. Kiravol could not understand this. Did they not believe her? Did they think she was exaggerating? She pulled up the human database files. Humans came from a planet called Earth. Earth was rated as a level 12 death world. That was higher than Zelthar. That was the highest rating possible. She read through the Earth file. The planet had extreme weather. Hurricanes that could destroy cities. Tornadoes that threw vehicles through the air. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Tsunamis that drowned coastlines. The temperature ranged from 50 degrees below freezing to 50 degrees above comfortable. Humans had survived all of this. Earth had predators everywhere. Big cats that could kill with one bite. Bears that weighed half a ton. Sharks in the oceans. Crocodiles in the rivers. Venomous snakes and spiders. Poisonous insects. Humans had not just survived alongside these predators. They had become the dominant species. They had hunted everything else. Kiravol read this and felt a small spark of hope. Maybe the humans did know what they were doing. Maybe they had experience with dangerous creatures. But then she looked at her screen showing the approaching Raxthor and the hope faded. Earth predators were nothing compared to this. She checked the Raxthor's position again. It was closer now, maybe 20 minutes away from the camp. It was moving at a steady pace, not rushing but not slowing down either. It knew something was there. It had detected the humans. It was coming to investigate its territory. Kiravol made a decision. She would stay and watch. She would record everything. If the humans died, the coalition needed to know what happened. This would be important data for future contact with other human teams. She positioned her observation pod for the best viewing angle. She activated all her recording devices. She prepared herself to witness the death of 6 beings she had grown to like over the past 3 days. The Raxthor broke through the tree line 58 minutes after Kiravol's first warning. The crystal forest behind it shimmered in the morning light. The creature paused at the edge of the clearing and raised its head. Its sensory stalks extended and swiveled, scanning the human camp. It saw them. It smelled them. It identified them as intruders. The Raxthor was the biggest thing Kiravol had ever seen on land. Its silicate plates gleamed like polished metal. Its 4 legs were thick as tree trunks. Its killing arms unfolded slowly, the blade appendages catching the light. The creature's mouth opened, revealing rows of crystal teeth, and it made a sound. A deep rumbling roar that shook the ground and made the air vibrate. Kiravol watched the humans react to the roar. They all turned to face the creature. They did not run. They did not scream. They simply stopped what they were doing and looked at the Raxthor with calm attention. Kate said something. The humans moved into formation. Jake and Lisa stepped forward. The others moved behind them. The Raxthor lowered its head and charged. The Raxthor charged across the clearing with terrible speed. Kiravol had seen many creatures move, but nothing prepared her for this. The beast covered ground faster than seemed possible for something so large. Its 4 legs pounded the purple sand, leaving deep prints. The killing arms extended fully now. Blades pointed forward like spears. The distance between the creature and the humans shrank rapidly. 100 meters. 80 meters. 60 meters. Kiravol had every recording device running. Her 4 eyes tracked different elements of the scene. 1 eye stayed on the Raxthor. 1 watched Jake Morrison. 1 watched Lisa Chen. The last eye kept the full group in view. She would document everything. The Coalition needed to know exactly how humans died when facing apex predators. This data would save lives in the future, even if it could not save these 6. The humans held their ground. Jake stood at the front, slightly ahead of Lisa. His rifle hung on his back. His pistols stayed in their holsters. Kiravol felt confusion mixed with her fear. Why was he not shooting? The Raxthor was well within weapon range. Even if bullets could not penetrate the armor, he should try. He should do something. 40 meters, 30 meters, 20 meters. Jake's hand moved to his side. Kiravol's eyes focused on the motion. He was reaching for something on his belt. A sheath. He was drawing a knife. The human was pulling out a knife to fight a Raxthor. Kiravol's analytical mind cataloged the weapon, even as her emotions screamed that this was insane. The knife was approximately 30 centimeters long. The blade appeared to be made from composite steel, strong but basic. The handle was wrapped in some kind of grip material. It was a simple tool, a primitive tool, utterly useless against a creature covered in silicate armor that could deflect energy weapons. The Raxthor reached the camp perimeter. 15 meters, 10 meters. It raised 1 killing arm high. The blade appendage angled down for a sweeping strike. The creatures used this attack to cut prey in half. The blade would come down in an arc that covered a wide area. Nothing in that zone would survive. The strike was unavoidable. Jake Morrison stepped forward to meet it. Everything happened very fast. Kiravol's recording devices captured it perfectly, but her mind struggled to process what she saw. The Raxthor's blade arm came down with massive force. The air whistled as the blade cut through it. The strike would hit Jake in less than a second. There was no time to dodge, no time to block, no time to do anything except die. Jake moved. His body shifted. His torso rotated. His feet repositioned. The motion was smooth and controlled. Not panicked. Not desperate. Just efficient. The blade arm passed through the space where Jake had been standing a fraction of a second before. It missed him by what looked like only centimeters. The blade slammed into the ground beside him, throwing up sand and small rocks. The Raxthor's momentum carried it forward. Its massive body could not stop instantly. The creature had committed to the attack. For just a moment it was off balance, exposed. Jake stepped in closer. He moved inside the creature's guard, into the space between its body and its killing arms. His knife came up in a precise arc. The blade moved fast but controlled. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. Jake's arm extended and the knife slid between 2 silicate plates on the Raxthor's neck. The beast made a sound. Not a roar this time, a gurgle, a wet choking noise. Purple blood sprayed from the wound. The Raxthor tried to turn, tried to bring its other blade arm around, but Jake was already moving away. He pulled the knife out as he stepped back. More blood followed the blade. The creature stumbled. Its legs buckled. 4 tons of muscle and armor collapsed onto the sand. The impact sent vibrations through the ground. The Raxthor's killing arms twitched once, twice, then went still. Purple blood pooled beneath its body, soaking into the purple sand and turning it dark. Jake stood 3 meters away, his knife still in his hand. He watched the creature for a few seconds, making sure it was truly dead. Then he reached into a pocket and pulled out a cloth. He cleaned the blade carefully, wiping away the purple blood. When the knife was clean, he returned it to its sheath. The entire fight had lasted maybe 4 seconds from start to finish. Kiraval sat in her observation pod completely still. Her 4 eyes blinked in different rhythms, a sign of deep confusion in her species. Her recording devices confirmed what happened. The data was clear. A human had killed a Raxthor in single combat using only a knife. The human had made it look easy. No, not easy. That was the wrong word. Jake had not struggled, true, but Kiraval watched the recording again in slow motion. Every movement had been precise. Every step had been calculated. The dodge had been perfectly timed. The counterattack had struck at exactly the right spot. This was not luck. This was not accident. This was skill. Pure, practiced, deadly skill. Lisa Chen walked over to the Raxthor's body. She kept her rifle ready, but the creature was clearly dead. She circled it once, checking for any signs of life, then nodded to Jake. "Clean kill," she said. Her voice was calm, matter-of-fact. She could have been commenting on the weather. The other humans approached now. Kate pulled out her tablet and started taking notes. She walked around the body, examining it from different angles. "Beautiful specimen," she said. She sounded excited. Actually excited? Look at the plate structure. The way they overlap. Incredible evolutionary adaptation. Sophie practically bounced on her feet. "Can I take samples?" "Please, this is amazing. We might never get another chance to study one up close." Jake shrugged. "Sure, just be quick about it. We should move the body away from camp before it starts to smell." They were discussing the dead apex predator like it was a scientific curiosity. Like Jake had not just killed something that Coalition records said was nearly impossible to kill. Like this was a normal part of their day. Ryan walked up and examined the knife wound. "Nice placement," he said to Jake. "Between the 3rd and 4th cervical plates, right?" Jake nodded. "Weakest point on the neck. Most creatures have gaps in their armor at the joints. You just have to know where to look." Kiraval activated her communication link. Her voice came out strange, higher than normal, shaking slightly. "Human Jake Morrison, I must ask. How did you accomplish that?" Jake looked up at her observation pod. He seemed to notice it for the first time, even though it had been hovering above the camp for 3 days. "Accomplish what?" he asked. "You killed a Raxthor. With a knife. In single combat. This should not be possible." Kiraval heard the disbelief in her own voice. Jake smiled. The expression was friendly, but somehow it made Kiraval more nervous, not less. "Oh, that," he said. "Yeah, big creature, lots of armor, but armor always has joints and weak points. Everything with a skeleton has vulnerable spots. You just have to know anatomy and physics." "But the speed," Kiraval insisted. "The precision. Your species does not possess enhanced reflexes according to our initial scans. You should not be able to dodge that fast." "We don't need enhanced reflexes," Jake said. He sounded patient, like he was explaining something obvious. "We've been hunting things that wanted to eat us for about 200,000 years. Back on Earth, humans were not the biggest predators. We were not the fastest. We were not the strongest. But we learned. We adapted. We figured out how to kill things bigger and meaner than us. It's what we do. It's what we've always done." He turned away from the observation pod, clearly considering the conversation finished. Lisa was already helping Sophie set up her sampling equipment. Kate was taking measurements of the Raxthor's limbs. Ben had returned to his atmospheric readings, apparently unconcerned that a massive predator had just attacked the camp. Ryan was back to hitting rocks with his hammer. Kiraval watched them work. She replayed the fight over and over in her recordings. Each time she watched, she noticed new details. The way Jake had angled his feet for maximum mobility. The way his body weight had shifted to add power to the knife strike. The way he had kept his eyes on the creature the entire time, tracking every movement. This was not natural talent. This was training. Years of training. Maybe generations of training. She thought about Earth. A level 12 death world, a planet so dangerous that most species would not survive a day there. Humans had grown up on that planet. They had evolved on it. They had adapted to survive in one of the most hostile environments the galaxy had ever produced. And they had brought those adaptations with them to the stars. Kiravel spent the rest of the morning reviewing her recordings and trying to understand what she had witnessed. She played the fight sequence dozens of times. She slowed it down. She analyzed every frame. She measured Jake's movements down to the centimeter. She calculated the timing of his dodge down to the millisecond. The numbers were clear, but they made no sense with what she knew about humans. According to Coalition medical scans, humans had average reflexes for a carbon-based species. They were not slow, but they were not particularly fast either. Their reaction time fell within normal ranges. They had good hand-eye coordination, but nothing extraordinary. On paper, humans should not be able to dodge a Raxthor strike. The creature moved too fast. The attack came too quickly. There simply was not enough time for a human nervous system to process the threat, make a decision, and execute a response. Yet Jake had done exactly that. More than that, he had made it look routine. Kiravel expanded her analysis. She pulled up combat data from other Coalition species. She compared their techniques to what Jake had demonstrated. Most species relied on strength or speed or armor or technology. They met force with greater force. They used weapons that could penetrate enemy defenses. They wore protection that could withstand attacks. This was logical. This made sense. Jake had used none of those things. He had worn regular clothes. He had carried a simple knife. He had not tried to match the Raxthor's strength or speed. Instead, he had used timing and precision. He had turned the creature's own momentum against it. He had waited for the exact moment when the Raxthor was committed to its attack and could not change direction. Then he had struck at the one spot where the armor did not protect. This was not how most species fought. This required understanding, knowledge, the ability to see patterns and exploit weaknesses. It required controlling fear and maintaining focus during a life-threatening situation. It required trusting your own skills completely. Kiravel watched the humans continue their work around the camp. Sophie had taken tissue samples from the Raxthor and was running analysis on her portable equipment. She kept making excited noises about the cellular structure. Kate had sketched the creature's bone structure and was comparing it to other predators in her database. Ryan helped Jake and Lisa drag the body away from camp. Even dead, the Raxthor was heavy. The three humans worked together, using ropes and simple leverage. Ben had set up new atmospheric monitors near where the Raxthor had emerged from the forest. He wanted to see if large predators affected local air currents. This seemed like a strange thing to wonder about right after almost being killed, but Ben appeared genuinely curious. The humans worked efficiently. They talked while they worked, making jokes and sharing observations. Lisa said something that made Jake laugh. Sophie called Kate over to look at something under her microscope. Ryan found an interesting rock near the body drag path and spent 10 minutes examining it before helping again. They acted like nothing unusual had happened. Like fighting apex predators was just another task on their daily schedule. Kiravel checked the time. 2 hours had passed since the encounter. The Coalition military vessel was still 2 hours away. She sent an update to the vessel canceling the emergency. She attached a recording of the fight with a note that said simply, "Threat eliminated by local human team. No assistance required." The Coalition captain's response came back quickly. "Confirmed Raxthor kill? Please verify." Kiravel sent 3 different camera angles of the fight. There was a long pause before the next message arrived. "Understood. We are impressed. We'll maintain course to check on situation personally. Captain Vornall out." Kiravel understood the captain's reaction. She felt the same way. Impressed was too mild a word. Shocked, amazed, confused, those were better words. The impossible had happened, and now everyone who saw the recording would have to reconsider what they thought they knew about humans. She opened a communication channel to the camp again. Kate answered, her face appearing on Kiravel's screen. The human woman was smiling, completely relaxed. "Hey Kiravel, what can we do for you?" "I am updating my report to Coalition headquarters," Kiravel said carefully. "I would like to include some information about human combat training. Is this something all humans learn?" Kate thought about this for a moment. "Not all humans, no. But many of us learn some form of self-defense. Jake has more training than most. He was military before joining our science teams. Special forces, actually. That means extra training for difficult situations. Special forces, Kiraval repeated, adding this to her notes. What does this training include? Lots of things. Physical conditioning, weapons training, survival skills, hand-to-hand combat. Jake probably spent years learning how to fight different types of opponents. Big ones, small ones, armed ones, unarmed ones. The military teaches you to stay calm and think clearly when bad things happen. Kiraval processed this. So Jake Morrison is unusual even among humans? In terms of combat skills, yes. But in terms of staying calm under pressure? Not really. Most humans can do that. We kind of have to. Earth is not a gentle planet. Bad things happen all the time. Storms, earthquakes, floods, fires, dangerous animals. You learn to deal with problems or you don't survive very long. This matched what Kiraval had read about Earth. The planet produced constant challenges. Humans grew up facing them. They adapted. Those who could not adapt did not pass on their genes. Natural selection had created a species that could handle stress and danger. Thank you for the information, Kiraval said. One more question, if I may. Did Jake Morrison know he could kill the Raxthor before attempting it? Kate smiled wider. Oh, definitely. Jake would not have tried if he thought he would lose. He is very good at calculating odds. If the Raxthor had been impossible to kill with a knife, he would have used a gun. But he saw how it moved, identified the weak points, and decided the knife was sufficient. Plus, using a knife meant no risk of stray bullets hitting our equipment or samples. Sufficient. The human had killed an apex predator with a knife because it was sufficient for the task. Not because he wanted to show off. Not because he enjoyed fighting. Simply because it was the most practical choice for the situation. Kiraval ended the communication and returned to her observations. The afternoon passed quietly. The humans continued their scientific work. Sophie finished cataloging the Raxthor samples. Kate identified 17 new plant species. Ryan found a deposit of rare minerals that made him extremely happy. Ben's atmospheric data showed interesting weather patterns forming to the north. Jake and Lisa maintained security but had nothing else to fight. As evening approached, the humans gathered around their fire again. They cooked dinner over the flames. They shared the food and talked about their day. Jake told a story about a previous mission that involved a water creature and a broken boat. The others laughed. Sophie added her own story about accidentally releasing a swarm of flying insects in a laboratory. More laughter. They were bonding, strengthening their social connections. This was important for species that worked in small groups. Kiraval understood this. But what struck her was how human they seemed. Not alien, not strange. Just people who enjoyed each other's company and found humor in their experiences. The Coalition military vessel arrived at sunset. It was a large ship, heavily armed, designed for dangerous missions. It settled onto the landing zone 100 meters from the human camp. Captain Vornal emerged with a squad of armed soldiers. The captain was a Threnak, a species known for their combat abilities. Large, muscular, with thick skin and natural weapons. They were some of the best fighters in the Coalition. Captain Vornal approached the human camp carefully. His soldiers spread out in a defensive formation. They all carried weapons. They all looked ready for trouble. They expected to find a team of frightened scientists who had barely survived a Raxthor attack. Instead, they found humans sitting around a fire, roasting meat and singing songs. Kate stood up and walked over to greet the captain. She smiled and extended her hand in the human greeting gesture. Captain Vornal, I presume. Thank you for responding to our situation. But as you can see, we are fine. Everything is under control. The captain looked around the camp. He saw the normal activities. He saw the relaxed humans. He looked at the drag marks in the sand where the Raxthor body had been moved. I saw the recordings, he said slowly. Your security officer killed a Raxthor with a knife. Yes, he did, Kate agreed cheerfully. Jake is very skilled. Would you like to examine the body? Sophie took excellent samples if you want to see them. The creature was fascinating. The armor plating alone deserves a full paper. Captain Vornal stared at Kate like she was speaking a language his translator could not process. His soldiers looked equally confused. They had come prepared for a rescue mission. They had expected casualties. They had expected trauma. They found humans treating an apex predator's death as a minor scientific opportunity. Your people are not afraid. The captain said finally. It was not a question. Kate shrugged. Of the Raxthor? It's dead now. No reason to be afraid of something dead. Of this planet in general? Sure, it is dangerous, but we've worked on dangerous planets before. You take precautions. You stay alert. You handle problems as they come. Fear is not very useful unless it motivates you to be careful. The captain nodded slowly. Kiraval composed her final report 3 days after the Raxthor incident. She sat in her observation pod and watched the humans prepare to leave Zelthar. They were packing their equipment, securing their samples, and running final checks on their ship. In another hour, they would lift off and return to their main vessel in orbit. Her observation assignment would end. She would write her report and submit it to the Coalition Council. Then the Council would decide if humanity was ready to join the greater galactic community. She had seen enough to make her recommendation. But first, she needed to organize her thoughts and present her findings clearly. The report would be read by council members from hundreds of species. It would influence policy toward humanity for generations. She had to get this right. Kiraval started with the standard format. Species designation, humanity. Planet of origin, Earth Sol system. Classification, carbon-based bilateral symmetry, internal skeleton, warm-blooded. Technology level, early spacefaring, faster than light capable. Population, approximately 11 billion across homeworld and colonial settlements. Then came the important section, behavioral analysis and threat assessment. She paused. This was the part that would matter most. The Coalition needed to know if humans were dangerous. Not dangerous in the sense of being evil or hostile. Dangerous in the sense of being able to cause damage if someone pushed them. The galaxy had many peaceful species. It also had many species that thought peaceful meant weak. Those species sometimes made bad decisions. The Coalition needed to know what would happen if someone made a bad decision about humans. Kiraval reviewed her recordings one more time. She watched Jake kill the Raxthor. She watched the humans remain calm during the Vexmore attack. She watched them work efficiently in a hostile environment. She watched them laugh and sing around their fire while surrounded by things that could kill them. She watched Captain Vornal and his soldiers, trained warriors all, look uncertain and impressed when faced with human competence. She began typing. Human behavior patterns showed remarkable adaptability and stress tolerance. The species demonstrated advanced problem-solving skills and creative thinking. They cooperated effectively in small groups. They maintained emotional stability during dangerous situations. They showed no signs of panic or irrational behavior when faced with threats. That was the diplomatic version. Kiraval knew what it really meant. Humans were scary when they needed to be. They stayed calm when others would break. They solved problems that should not have solutions. They killed things that should not be killable. And they did it all while making jokes and collecting scientific data. She continued writing. The night of the Raxthor incident, Captain Vornal had interviewed the human team. Kiraval had recorded those interviews. They revealed important information about human thinking. The captain had asked Jake Morrison how he learned to fight so effectively. Jake explained that Earth militaries had thousands of years of combat experience. Humans had fought each other constantly throughout their history. They had developed hundreds of different fighting styles. They had studied anatomy and physics and psychology. They had written manuals on how to kill efficiently. They had schools dedicated to teaching violence. But Jake had also explained something else. He said that fighting was a last resort. Humans preferred to solve problems without violence. They negotiated. They compromised. They found peaceful solutions when possible. Violence was a tool they kept in reserve, only used when necessary. This matched what Kiraval had observed. The humans had not wanted to fight the Raxthor. They had simply accepted that fighting was unavoidable and handled it efficiently. Then they returned to their scientific work. The violence was not something they enjoyed. It was just something they were good at when required. Captain Vornal had also spoken with Kate Sullivan. He asked about Earth and what it was like growing up on a death world. Kate had laughed at the term death world. She said humans just called it home. Yes, Earth had dangers. Storms that could flatten cities. Earthquakes that split the ground. Volcanoes that buried entire regions. Animals that hunted humans. Diseases that killed millions. But Earth also had beauty. Sunsets over oceans. Mountains that touched the clouds. Forests full of life. Humans loved their violent, dangerous, beautiful planet. They had adapted to it. They had learned to survive its challenges. Those challenges made them stronger. Kate had said something that Kiraval included in her report word for word. We are not warriors by nature, we are survivors by necessity. Earth taught us to be tough, but it also taught us to appreciate life. When you grow up knowing that tomorrow is not guaranteed, you learn to value the people around you. You learn to work together. You learn to help each other. Because alone you die, together you survive. This explained so much about human behavior. They bonded quickly with their teams. They helped each other constantly. They found joy in small things like sharing food or telling stories. They knew life was fragile, so they protected it fiercely. Kiraval moved on to the technical assessment section. She included detailed analysis of human combat techniques. She noted their preference for efficiency over showmanship. She documented their ability to remain calm under pressure. She highlighted their adaptability and creative problem-solving. Then she reached the threat classification section. This was required for all first contact reports. The coalition used a scale from 1 to 10. Level 1 meant no threat at all. Level 10 meant existential threat to galactic security. Most species fell between 3 and 6. Kiraval thought carefully about where to place humanity. They had impressive capabilities. Jake had killed a Raxthor with a knife. That alone suggested a high rating. But humans were also friendly and cooperative. They followed rules. They respected other species. They seemed genuinely interested in peaceful coexistence. She made her decision and typed the classification. Level 7 with special notation. Then she wrote her explanation. Humans represented no malicious threat to coalition security. They showed no signs of aggressive expansion or hostile intent. They were not conquerors or warmongers. They were explorers and scientists who wanted to learn and share knowledge. However, observers should be aware that humans originated from an extreme survival environment. They possessed combat capabilities far beyond what their physical specifications suggested. They had thousands of years of warfare experience coded into their cultural memory. They knew how to kill efficiently when necessary. Most importantly, humans had a strong protective instinct. They defended their teams, their friends, and their values with absolute commitment. Anyone who threatened humans or their allies would face significant resistance. Kiraval paused and added one more paragraph. This was personal opinion, not required by the report format, but she felt it was important. Recommendation: approach humanity with respect and honesty. They respond well to straightforward communication and mutual cooperation. They are natural allies and would make valuable coalition members. But do not mistake their friendliness for weakness. Do not threaten them or their people. Do not test their patience. Humans are not warriors by choice, but they are survivors by evolution, and they carry that competency in everything they do. She reviewed the entire report one final time. It was thorough. It was honest. It presented humans accurately, highlighting both their positive qualities and their potential dangers. The council would read this and make an informed decision. Kiraval attached all her recordings to the report. The Raxthor fight, the interviews, the daily observations, hundreds of hours of footage showing humans working, talking, laughing, and living. The council members could see for themselves what humanity was really like. She transmitted the report to coalition headquarters. The message would take several days to reach them through the relay network. Then the council would review it. Then they would vote on whether to accept humanity into the coalition. Kiraval felt confident about the outcome. Humans would be accepted. They were too valuable not to accept. They brought fresh perspectives. They had useful skills. They would contribute positively to the galactic community. Below her observation pod, the humans were finishing their final tasks. Jake was doing a weapons check, making sure everything was secured properly. Lisa was running a diagnostic on the ship's systems. Kate and Sophie were carefully packing their plant and animal samples. Ryan had his rock collection organized and labeled. Ben was uploading his atmospheric data to backup storage. They worked together smoothly, each person knowing their role, helping when needed. They had been on Zelthar for 6 days and had accomplished more scientific work than most teams managed in 3 weeks. They had survived multiple predator encounters. They had adapted to a hostile environment. They had treated every challenge as just another problem to solve. Captain Vornal and his soldiers were preparing to leave too. The captain had spent 2 days with the human team. Kiraval had watched his attitude change. At first he had been skeptical and worried. By the time he left, he was impressed and thoughtful. He told Kate that he would recommend humans for coalition military partnerships. High praise from Athrana.